The stars vanished first. June leaned away from his telescope with a frown. The night sky above the Boyanson Observatory had always been clear, especially on crisp autumn nights like this one. But now, one by one, the stars were disappearing as if someone was turning them off. "That's not possible," he muttered, adjusting the settings and looking again. The phone on his desk rang. June picked it up without taking his eyes off the viewfinder. "Are you seeing this?" It was Dad, his friend at the Seoul National University Observatory. "The stars are going out," June said. "Not going out. Being blocked." June froze. He pulled back from the telescope and looked up at the night sky with his naked eyes. A vast darkness was spreading across the heavens, not like clouds but like ink in water. "I'm sending you the thermal readings," Day said, his voice shaking. "They're enormous, June. And they're not meteors." June's computer beeped as the file arrived. The screen showed massive heat signatures entering Earth's atmosphere. Too big, too organized to be natural. "Have you called the authorities?" June asked, reaching for his coat. "Everyone is calling them. The American observatory saw it 15 minutes ago. The Chinese are already on high alert." Across Seoul, Hannah was being rushed into an emergency meeting at the Defense Ministry. As the youngest analyst on the team, she usually sat in the back. Today, they'd put her right next to the minister. "Tell them what you told me," her boss said. Hannah stood, trying to keep her voice steady. 3 hours ago, we detected unusual patterns in satellite communications. At first, we thought it was solar flare activity, but the pattern is too regular. Something is interfering with our signals deliberately." The room filled with murmurs as the giant screen on the wall switched to a global communications map. Red dots were spreading across it like a rash. "These are communication outages," she explained. "They started in the Pacific and are moving west. At this rate, all global communications will be down within." The lights flickered. The screen went black. Every phone in the room began to chime with alerts. "They're here," someone whispered. The minister's phone rang. He answered it, listened for a moment, then looked up with wide eyes. "The president is being moved to the emergency bunker. We have unidentified objects entering our airspace." The building shook, not like an earthquake, more like the air itself was trembling. Hannah ran to the window. The Seoul skyline was as bright as ever, but above it, the sky had changed. Where stars should have been, massive shapes hung suspended, darker than the night itself. "What do they want?" someone behind her asked. Her phone buzzed. It was a text from her brother. "Are you seeing the sky? What's happening?" She started to type a reply when the screen went dead. One by one, every phone in the room died. The backup lights flickered and went out. In the darkness, Hannah heard the defense minister say, "Get to the analog systems. Radio, if we still have it." Miles away, June was racing down the mountain in his old truck. The radio switched between static and panicked voices. The military was scrambling jets. The president was about to address the nation. People were being told to stay indoors. Then the radio died too. June stopped the truck and stepped out. The night was eerily silent. No planes, no distant traffic. Even the insects seemed quiet. He looked up. The ships, because that's what they had to be, were moving into formation above the major cities. One hovered directly over Seoul, a massive shadow blotting out the moon. His phone had no signal, but he tried anyway, filming the sky and attempting to send it to Da with a simple message. "They're blocking everything." The send button flashed red. Error. In that moment, as June stood alone on the dark mountain road, the world held its breath. Earth fell quiet, and everything changed. 3 days of darkness followed. Hannah huddled in the Defense Ministry's basement with 24 officials. Their flashlights grew dimmer by the hour. Watches stopped. Battery-powered radios picked up nothing but static. "We need to leave," Hannah said on the third morning. "Seoul isn't safe. The defense minister shook his head. The president ordered us to stay. When? Hannah asked. Before or after we lost all contact? No one answered. They all knew the truth. They were blind, cut off from the world. I'm going to find my family, she said, gathering her few belongings. Anyone who wants to come is welcome. 5 others joined her. They climbed the emergency stairs to the street level and pushed open the door. Seoul had changed. The giant ships still hung in the sky, but now strange blue lights shimmered around them like curtains. The city was silent. No cars, no planes, no hum of electricity. People walked instead of drove. Some pulled carts loaded with food and water. The energy field started yesterday. An old man told them when Hannah asked. Nothing with a chip works anymore. Cars, phones, computers, all dead. Hannah and her group began the long walk south. They needed to reach Daejeon, where her parents lived. 60 miles on foot would take days. Meanwhile, Jun had made it back to his hometown, a small farming village near Daegu. The countryside was better off than the cities. People here still had food from their gardens and clean water from wells. Any news? He asked his elderly neighbor, Mr. Kang. Kim from the next village rode his bicycle all the way to Daegu, Mr. Kang said. The aliens have landed. Jun felt a chill. Where? Everywhere. Big cities first. They look almost like people, he said, but wrong somehow. They're setting up towers that glow blue. That night, Jun climbed the hill behind his parents' house. From there, he could see the blue glow on the horizon where Daegu lay. The alien ships remained in the sky, perfectly still. What do they want? He whispered to the empty air. As if in answer, a low hum filled the valley. It grew louder, making the ground vibrate. Dogs began to bark. Children cried. Jun ran back to the village. People were coming out of their homes, looking up. A smaller ship was descending directly above them. Everyone inside, Jun shouted. Hide. But it was too late. The ship stopped about 50 feet above the village center. A beam of pale light shot down, and within it, shapes began to form. 3 figures stood in the dirt road. They were tall and thin with smooth, pale skin. They looked almost human, but their movements were too fluid, too perfect. Their eyes were large and dark. One stepped forward. This settlement is now under protection, it said in perfect Korean. Remain calm. We are the collectors. An old woman stepped toward them. What do you want from us? The alien tilted its head, a too smooth imitation of human curiosity. We want nothing from you. We are here to preserve. Preserve what? Jun asked. The alien turned to him. Its eyes seemed to look through him rather than at him. Everything, it said simply. On the road to Daejeon, Hannah's group saw the blue towers rising in the distance. They gave the city a wide berth, moving through forests instead of roads. They're everywhere, a farmer told them when they stopped at his isolated house for water. They're taking samples, plants, animals, soil. They say they're preserving Earth. From what? Hannah asked. The farmer looked grim. From us, I think. That night, as they camped in the woods, Hannah saw strange lights moving through the trees. Not blue like the towers, but white, like searchlights. They're hunting, she whispered. In the morning, 2 of her group were missing. Just gone, without a sound. Earth had not only fallen quiet, it had become a hunting ground. 2 weeks after the ships came, the collectors made their big move. In Jun's village, the aliens had set up a small camp at the edge of town. They rarely spoke to the humans, but they took samples of everything, plants, animals, soil, even the air. They placed each sample in clear boxes that glowed faintly. Jun watched them from a distance. They looked almost human, but something was wrong about them. They moved too smoothly. Their faces showed no emotion. And their eyes, those large, dark eyes, never blinked. One morning, a larger ship arrived. From it stepped a collector different from the others. This one wore a sort of silver vest over its gray bodysuit. "I am Taijo," it announced to the gathered villagers. "I speak for the collector mission on Earth." June noticed how it had taken a Korean name, as if trying to seem friendly. "Why are you here?" Mr. Kang demanded. He was not afraid like the others. Taijo tilted his head in that strange, mechanical way. "Earth has been designated as a preservation zone. We are saving what makes this planet special." "And what about us?" June asked. "Are we special too?" "Humans are one of 4.3 million species on this planet," Taijo replied. "You are included in our preservation efforts." A chill ran through the crowd. To be preserved sounded too much like being put in one of those glowing boxes. Meanwhile, Hana had reached the outskirts of Daejeon. The city was different now. Blue towers stood at every major intersection. Collectors walked the streets, escorted by humans who seemed oddly calm, almost empty-eyed. "Collaborators," whispered Minho, the last of her group from Seoul. "They work with the aliens now." Hana needed to find her parents, but entering the city was dangerous. They watched from a hillside as collectors loaded boxes of samples onto their ships. "Look," Minho pointed. A group of humans was being led into a large dome that hadn't been there before. They walked in straight lines, without talking, like they were asleep. "We need to get closer," Hana said. They crept down to the edge of the city as night fell. The blue towers glowed brighter in the darkness. Strange humming sounds filled the air. "Stay low," Hana whispered. They reached the dome and found a small vent near the ground. Hana peered inside. Rows and rows of humans stood perfectly still on platforms. Collectors moved among them, scanning each person with small devices. "What are they doing?" Minho asked. "Cataloging us," Hana replied, feeling sick. "Like we're just another species to add to their collection." A voice spoke behind them. "You are correct." They spun around. A collector stood there, watching them with those dark, empty eyes. "I am Mayul," it said. "I study human behavior." Hana reached for the knife hidden in her boot. "Violence is unnecessary," Yul said. "I am not here to capture you." "Then why are you here?" Minho demanded. "To observe. You too are different. You resist the calming fields from our towers. This is unusual." Hana studied the collector. It seemed younger somehow, less certain than the others she had seen. "What are the calming fields?" she asked. "They help humans accept their new role," Yul explained. "Most comply easily." "And what is our new role?" Hana's voice was hard. "To be preserved, of course. Earth is the 18th world we have saved." "Saved from what?" Minho asked. Yul seemed confused by the question. "From the future, from change, from loss." It paused. "From yourselves." Back in the village, Jun watched as the collectors packed up their camp. They were moving on, leaving only the blue tower behind. "Remember," Taijo announced before departing, "attempts to damage the preservation equipment are counterproductive. The tower keeps you safe." As the ship rose into the air, Jun looked at the tower. He wondered what it really did, and if there was a way to find out without getting caught. Earth had visitors now, and they had no plans to leave. 6 months passed. Winter came and went. The world changed. Hana lived in an abandoned tunnel beneath Daejeon, with 12 others who had escaped the collector's control. Food was scarce. Hope was scarcer. She sat alone one night, turning the dial on an old radio she had found. It was a simple device made before computers, before chips, just wires, transistors, and basic parts. Static filled the small room. She had tried many times before with no luck. But tonight was different. Through the noise came 3 short sounds, then 3 long ones, then 3 short again. SOS. Hana's heart raced. She grabbed a pencil and paper and began to write down the pattern of sounds. It was Morse code, something she had learned as a child from her grandfather. The message repeated, "Cell URVI GORS near DAEGU. Respond." With shaking hands, she found the transmit button and tapped out a reply. Ors Daegon. Listening. Miles away in a root cellar beneath his family's farm, Jum smiled as he received the response. For months, he had been sending out signals on different frequencies, hoping someone would answer. "I told you it would work," said Da, his friend from the observatory who had found his way to the village after the invasion. "We need to tell the others," Jun said. In the months since the collectors arrived, Jun had learned much. The blue towers emitted fields that made most electronic devices useless. But they also affected human minds, making people calm and obedient. Some people, like Jun and his friends, were less affected. They pretended to obey while secretly searching for ways to fight back. They discovered that old technology, things without computer chips, sometimes still worked. Vacuum tubes, mechanical machines, simple radios. Who else knows about this? Hannah asked the next night when they connected again. Small groups in Busan, Gwangju, and a few villages. Jun replied through Morse code. Maybe 100 people total. "We need to connect them all," Hannah said. Over the next weeks, they built a network. They called it Quiet Earth, a joke about how the aliens had silenced the planet's technology. They used bicycle messengers to carry radio parts to other groups. They taught others Morse code. They created maps showing safe routes between settlements that avoided the collectors' patrols. Hannah's group found an old printing press in a museum. They used it to make simple pamphlets explaining how to avoid the calming effects of the towers, stay underground, wear hats made with certain metals, move at night when the fields were weaker. One night, a new voice joined their radio network. "This is Ta from Incheon." The message came. "Former radio operator from the Navy. I have news from across the ocean. America had resistors too. So did Europe, Africa, and Australia. Small pockets of humans everywhere were finding the same solution. Old technology the aliens couldn't detect or control. They don't understand analog," Jun explained to his growing group of followers. "They use only digital, quantum systems. Our old, simple machines are invisible to them." Hannah organized a meeting. 20 people from different resistance cells gathered in an abandoned mine shaft. They brought hand-drawn maps, reports written on paper, and ideas. "The collectors have a pattern," she explained. "They gather samples for 3 months in an area, then move their ships to new locations, but they always leave the towers behind." "Can we destroy the towers?" someone asked. "Not yet," Jun said. "They have sensors. But we're working on a way." Day showed them his latest creation, a mechanical device made of gears and springs that could send messages without electricity. "No electronics means no detection," he said proudly. As the meeting ended, Hannah looked at the faces around her. For the first time in months, she saw hope. "We call ourselves Quiet Earth," she told them. "But soon, very soon, we will make noise again." The hidden network grew stronger. And the time to strike back drew closer. Jun stared at the piece of collector technology on the table before him. It was small and round like a smooth stone, but it glowed with a faint blue light. His team had taken it from a disabled collector drone 3 days ago. "Anything?" Dai asked, wiping sweat from his forehead. The underground bunker was hot and cramped, filled with salvaged equipment. "It's not like our technology," Jun replied. "There are no circuits, no wires. It's almost alive." For weeks, Jun and a small team of scientists had been studying everything they could steal from the collectors. Progress was slow, but they were learning. "Look at this," he said, pointing to his notes. "When we put it near our radio equipment, the signal gets stronger. It's like it amplifies analog waves while blocking digital ones." Meanwhile, in a different bunker near Daejeon, Hannah stood face to face with their prisoner. The young collector called Yul had been captured during a rare night patrol. Unlike the others, Yul seemed curious about humans, which made him careless. "Why do you call yourselves collectors?" Hannah asked. Yul sat perfectly still, those large dark eyes fixed on her. It is our purpose. We collect and preserve the unique aspects of worlds before they are lost. Lost to what? Progress, change, extinction. Yule tilted his head. You humans change so quickly. In a few hundred years, you would destroy much of what makes Earth special. Hannah leaned forward. So you're saying you're helping us? Of course. We have done this for 17 worlds before yours. All are now perfect, unchanging, preserved. A cold feeling settled in Hannah's stomach. What happened to the people on those worlds? They live simple lives. They are happy. They no longer build machines that harm their planets. They no longer wage wars. They're controlled, Hannah said flatly. They are guided, Yule corrected, just as children must be guided. That evening, Hannah used the radio to connect with June. Their Morse code conversation lasted nearly an hour as they shared what they had learned. They think they're saving us from ourselves, Hannah tapped out. And the other 17 worlds? June asked. Still under their control. Forever, as far as I can tell. June shared his team's discoveries. The collectors use quantum communication. That's why they can't detect our analog signals. They're looking for digital patterns. Any weaknesses? Hannah asked. Maybe. Day found something interesting. Their systems react strangely to certain sound patterns. We're still testing. The next day, Suk, a doctor working with Hannah's group, made a breakthrough with Yule. Your biology is similar to ours, she said after examining cell samples. But your nervous system is different, more sensitive to certain stimuli. We evolved differently, Yule explained. Our home world has different light, different gravity. Where is your home world? Hannah asked. Yule seemed confused by the question. Home. We have no home. We live on our ships. We have for thousands of years. You're nomads, Suk realized. You move from planet to planet. We preserve, Yule corrected. It is our purpose. That night, Hannah couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about what Yule had said. The collectors had no home. They just moved through space, preserving worlds and species like items in a museum. When morning came, she gathered her leadership team. We've been thinking about this all wrong, she told them. The collectors aren't invaders looking to destroy us. They're collectors in the true sense. They're building a living museum, and we're just another exhibit. Does that matter? Minho asked. They've still taken our world. It matters, Hannah said firmly, because now we know they don't want to kill us. They want to keep us, and that changes how we fight them. The room fell silent as everyone considered her words. Understanding the enemy was the first step. Now they needed a plan to defeat them. 1 year after the ships darkened Earth's skies, the resistance leaders gathered. They met in an old mine shaft deep beneath the mountains, far from any collector towers. 40 people sat in a rough circle, each representing different resistance cells across Korea. Hannah stood in the center. Today marks 1 year since they came, she said. 1 year since they silenced our world. But we are not beaten. Maps covered the walls around them. Hand-drawn diagrams showed collector bases, patrol routes, and tower locations. Notes detailed their weaknesses and strengths. For 12 months, we've watched and learned, Hannah continued. Now it's time to act. June stepped forward with Da beside him. They placed a strange device on the table. It looked like a music box with gears, springs, and a hand crank. This is our answer, June said. We call it the disruptor. He turned the crank. The device made a low humming sound that grew higher in pitch. Several people covered their ears. Sorry, June said, stopping the device. It's still rough, but it works. When activated near a collector or their technology, it creates sound waves that interfere with their systems. Like how a dog whistle affects dogs but not humans, Dai added. The collectors can't stand certain frequencies. It doesn't hurt them, but it makes their technology malfunction. Excited whispers filled the room. For the first time, they had a weapon. We can build these with parts from old watches, music boxes, and car parts, June explained. Simple mechanics. No electronics. Nothing they can detect. Hana unrolled a larger map on the central table. It showed all of Korea with red X marks at various points. These are data centers, she said, places where the collectors store all the samples they've taken, plants, animals, soil, and humans. The room grew quiet. Everyone knew people who had disappeared, taken as samples for the collector's archive. Our plan is simple, Hana continued. We attack all these centers at once. We use the disruptors to disable their defenses. We free our people and destroy their samples. All at once. Someone asked, "How can we coordinate?" Ta, the former radio operator, stepped forward. "We've expanded our radio network. We can send the signal to attack using a specific music pattern that only our radios will recognize." "What about the towers?" another voice asked. "As long as they stand, most people can't fight. They're too controlled." "That's phase 2, Jun said. The disruptors affect the towers too. Not enough to destroy them, but enough to create a window where their calming effect weakens." Suk, the doctor, spoke next. "We've also developed these." She held up headbands made of thin metal mesh. They partially block the tower's effects. Not perfect, but better than nothing. For the next several hours, they planned. Each team received assignments, maps, and timetables. They distributed parts to build disruptors and showed how to make the protective headbands. As the meeting ended, an old man stood up. He had been quiet until now. "I was a history teacher before they came," he said. "This reminds me of resistance movements from the past. Small groups against powerful enemies." He looked around the room. Sometimes they won. The day for their attack was set. In 3 weeks, when the collector ships would be repositioning. They called it Operation Striking Silence. That night, as the leaders returned to their cells, Hana and Jun stood alone at the entrance to the mine. "Do you think it will work?" Jun asked quietly. Hana looked up at the stars, visible now that the ships had moved to new positions. "It has too," she said. "For Earth." The plan was in motion. The time for silence was ending. Dawn broke over Korea as Hana checked her watch one last time. It was an old mechanical timepiece that had belonged to her grandfather. No batteries, no electronics, just gears and springs. Perfect for a world where modern technology no longer worked. 5 minutes, she whispered to her team. 20 of them hid in the trees surrounding the Seoul data center. The building looked like a giant glass cube, glowing with soft blue light. 2 collectors stood guard at the entrance. Across the country, similar teams waited near other data centers, all synchronized to old watches set to the same time. Hana touched the metal headband under her cap. It felt cold against her skin, but it helped block the calming waves from the nearby tower. She could think clearly, despite being so close to it. "Remember," she told her team, "the people inside may be confused when they wake up. Be gentle with them." In Daegu, Jun and his team of 15 approached their target from underground. They had spent weeks digging a tunnel beneath the data center. "Disruptors ready?" he asked. Each person nodded, holding their cranked devices. Jun looked at his pocket watch. 3 minutes. Inside his vest, Yule shifted uncomfortably. The young collector had surprised everyone by choosing to help them. "The storage units are in the center," he whispered. "The samples are kept in the blue containers along the north wall." Jun nodded. "And the people?" "West Wing." In suspended animation. At exactly 6:00 a.m., radios across Korea played the same 5 notes. It was the signal. Operation Striking Silence had begun. Hana activated her disruptor first. The device hummed, slowly building to a high-pitched sound that human ears could barely hear. The others in her team followed. The effect was immediate. The collector guards at the entrance froze, their movements becoming jerky and uncoordinated. The blue glow of the building flickered. "Now," Hana shouted. Her team rushed forward. The collectors tried to respond, but they moved as if underwater, slow and clumsy. The team easily overpowered them. Inside, they found rows of glowing containers. Some held plants or animals. Others held soil or water samples. And some, the largest ones, held people, floating in clear liquid, eyes closed as if sleeping. "Start with the people," Hannah ordered. "Get them out first." In Daegu, June's team broke through the floor of the data center. Their disruptors caused chaos above. Alarms blared. Strange, warbling sounds unlike any human alarm. "They're calling for help," Yule warned. "How long do we have?" June asked. 10 minutes, maybe less." They worked quickly, freeing the human samples and destroying the storage units. Each person they woke looked dazed, confused after months of suspension. "What's happening?" A young woman asked as Dai helped her stand. "We're taking back our world," he told her. Across Korea, the scene repeated. 6 data centers under attack simultaneously. Hundreds of people freed. Thousands of samples destroyed. But the collectors responded quickly. Ships descended from the sky, their engines making the air vibrate. "They're coming." Tae's voice crackled over the radio. "Everyone get out now." Hannah's team had just loaded the last rescued people onto trucks when the ship appeared overhead. A beam of light shot down, and 5 collectors materialized in front of the building. Unlike the others, these wore armor and carried devices that looked like weapons. "This is unexpected," one said, stepping forward. Unlike the others, this one moved normally despite the disruptors. "I am Commander Taejo." Hannah stepped forward, disruptor in hand. "We're taking back what's ours." "You cannot," Taejo said simply. "Earth is now a preservation zone. Resistance is counterproductive." He raised his hand, and the devices his soldiers carried began to glow. Hannah turned a dial on her disruptor. The pitch change became higher. Taejo flinched. His soldiers stumbled. For the first time, Hannah saw something new in a collector's eyes. Fear. The counterattack had begun, and humanity had found a weakness. "Turn it up higher," Hannah shouted over the noise. Her team cranked their disruptors to maximum power. The high-pitched sound made their own teeth hurt, but the effect on the collectors was much worse. Commander Taejo and his soldiers dropped their weapons. They covered their ears, though Hannah noticed they didn't have ears like humans did. Just smooth indentations on the sides of their heads. "Fall back," she ordered her team. "Get to the trucks." They retreated with the freed people, leaving the collectors struggling on the ground. But Hannah knew it wouldn't last long. Already, more ships were appearing in the sky. Back at their underground base, reports flooded in through the radio network. All 6 attacks had succeeded. Hundreds of people had been rescued. But the collectors were responding with full force now. "We hit them hard," Minho said, "but they'll recover." "We need something bigger," Hannah replied. "Something that affects all of them at once." That's when June rushed in, his face bright with excitement. "I know how to do it," he said. He spread diagrams across the table. The disruptors work by creating sound waves at frequencies the collectors can't tolerate, but they have limited range. "So?" Tai asked. "So we need to broadcast the sound everywhere," June explained. "Through every working radio on Earth." Suk frowned, but their ships and towers would block the signal. "Not if we use their own technology against them," Jun said. He turned to Yule, who stood quietly in the corner. "Tell them what you told me." Yule stepped forward hesitantly. "The towers don't just block signals," he said. "They redirect them. They're connected in a network that covers the whole planet. If you could feed a signal into one tower, it would spread to all of them." The room fell silent, as everyone considered this. "We would need to capture a tower," Hannah said finally. "Yes," Jim agreed. "And I know which one." The plan came together quickly. The main control tower was in Seoul, at the top of what used to be the Lot World Tower. It controlled all other towers in Asia. It's heavily guarded, Yule warned. But now we know their weakness. Hannah replied. We can use that. They gathered every disruptor they had and modified them based on what they had learned. June and Da built a new device, larger, more powerful, designed to connect directly to the tower. We're calling it the Symphony, Dad said proudly, because it will play the sound that frees Earth. 3 days later, a small team approached the Lot Tower. They wore their protective headbands and carried their weapons, not guns, but disruptors tuned to the exact frequency that most affected the collectors. Hannah led the way, with June, Da, Tai, and 5 others following. Yule came too, though he had to wear special ear coverings to protect himself from the sound. Remember, Hannah said, we only need 10 minutes to connect the symphony to the tower. Once it's active, get out immediately. The attack began at midnight. The disruptors cleared their path as collector guards fell to the ground, unable to function. They reached the top floor where the control room gleamed with blue light. June and Dad went to work quickly, connecting their device to the central panel. How much longer? Hannah asked, watching as more collector ships approached in the distance. Almost done, Jun replied, his fingers moving fast. There. The symphony activated. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then a wave of energy pulsed from the tower, spreading outward like ripples in water. Across the world, every tower repeated the signal, a specific pattern of sound waves that disrupted collector technology, but was harmless to humans. In the sky, the massive ships began to drift. Some tilted sideways. Others descended too quickly, crashing into empty fields. It's working, Ta shouted, looking out the window. Through their radio network, reports came in from around the world. Collector ships were falling. Towers were shutting down. The control was breaking. Commander Tejo appeared at the door of the control room. He looked different now, weaker, almost afraid. What have you done? He asked. Hannah faced him calmly. We've reminded you that Earth is not just another exhibit in your collection. We have our own voice. The symphony played on, filling the air with the sound of humanity's resistance. The tables had turned. Earth was striking back. 3 years passed since the day the symphony played its world-changing song. Earth was different now, changed forever by the collectors, but free again. Hannah stood on the roof of the old Defense Ministry building in Seoul. The city spread out below her, a mix of old and new. Some buildings were damaged from the fighting. Others had been rebuilt. The blue towers were gone, replaced by simple radio antennas. Beautiful day, Jun said, joining her at the railing. She nodded. The cherry blossoms are early this year. In the distance, they could see the edge of the city where a strange structure stood, a round building with a clear dome. Inside it lived the remaining collectors who had chosen to stay on Earth, not as conquerors, but as visitors learning about the world they had failed to preserve. After the symphony had disabled their ships and towers, the collectors had no choice but to negotiate. Most had left Earth, retreating to the edge of the solar system. But a few, like Yule, had asked to remain. The treaty delegation leaves tomorrow, Hannah said. The Collector Council finally agreed to meet with us. Are you nervous? June asked. Hannah smiled. A little. I never expected to be Earth's ambassador to alien species. The treaty had been hard won. When the collectors realized they couldn't control Earth, they had tried one final desperate attack. But humanity was ready, using their new understanding of sound waves to defend themselves. In the end, Commander Tejo had approached with a white flag, a human gesture he had learned, and asked for terms. Humans would keep Earth. The collectors would leave the solar system, but communication would remain open. And crucially, the collectors agreed to free the 17 other worlds they had preserved over the centuries. Day's new warning system is ready, Jun said, changing the subject. We've installed it on every continent. The system was brilliant in its simplicity, part digital, part analog, impossible to silence completely. If another species ever tried to quiet Earth again, they would fail. And Sook's research. Hannah asked. Going well. She thinks we can use what we learned from collector biology to help treat human nervous system disorders. They walked back inside to the meeting room, where Ty was training a new group of radio operators, not just for communication on Earth, but for reaching out to other worlds. The 17 that were now waking up from collector control. We received another message from the Centauri system, Todd told them excitedly. Their people are rebuilding too. They want to establish regular contact. That night, Hannah visited the collector dome. Ewell met her at the entrance. He looked different now. He had adopted some human mannerisms, like smiling, though his smile was still a bit strange, and blinking, though not quite at the right speed. Are you ready for tomorrow? He asked. As ready as I can be, she replied. Will your former leaders listen to us? They have no choice, Ewell said. You've proven that force is not the answer. That preservation without freedom is meaningless. They walked through the gardens inside the dome, where plants from all 18 worlds now grew together. What will you tell the council? Ewell asked. Hannah thought for a moment. That silence can be powerful, but only when it's chosen. That Earth and humanity aren't meant to be preserved like specimens in a collection. We're meant to grow, to change, to make noise. As she left the dome, Hannah stopped and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, the collector ships waited, but they no longer filled her with fear. Earth had fallen quiet once, but it had found its voice again. And now the whole universe would hear its story. The end.